Welcome to TalkNorth.com. Thanks to our longtime producer, Brandon Morton. Please download before you listen. If you'd like to advertise with us, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. And please follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. Two promo codes to be aware of. BiteSquad.com. Use the promo code TalkNorth to get your first delivery free. And go to SodaStick.com, the great local apparel company. Use the promo code YouBetcha to get free shipping on any sized order.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show, Steve. Should be a good one. Thanks for having me, Steven.
Double X anytime, man.
Christopher Mando Russo here. You are listening to Steven Strom on TalkNorth.com. Always passionate, always fiery. You're listening to the Strom Sports Show. Take it away, Steven.
And there goes the undefeated season. The Minnesota Golden Gophers have suffered their first loss. But before we get into that, welcome in everybody. Happy Sunday morning. Hope everyone's having a great start to their day. You're starting it off well by listening to me, of course. Steven Strom here at TalkNorth.com. Big shout out to my producer, Brandon Morton, Jim Suhan, and Matt Augusta. If you want to advertise with us, go to TalkNorth.com and contact Jim Suhan. We got an action-packed show for you today. We've got Ryan Ohalloran from the Denver Post. He is the beat writer for the Denver Broncos. He'll tell us what to expect from Denver's side of the ball. We'll look at matchups. We'll look at all that good stuff to get you ready for 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock if you're from Minnesota for this Vikings-Broncos game. Also, we'll get into why the Timberwolves' early success. Everyone kind of pump the brakes if you're going head over heels on the Timberwolves. Obviously, we'll do my picks that have been red hot right now. I was 3-0 in my college football picks yesterday with Alabama, with Baylor, and with Texas Tech. So all good stuff right there. But let's begin here as I waited to do my monologue for the end of the Gopher game. Gophers lose their first game, and I'm not going to rip them. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a waste of a season. I'm just going to lay out the facts on Saturday's loss. The amount of mental errors, and it starts with PJ Fleck, that occurred on Saturday were unacceptable. And when you're playing a team like Iowa, because you're not playing South Dakota State, now you're not playing Georgia Southern, Illinois, or any of those crummy Division I teams, when you make these mental errors, they're going to come back to bite you, especially on a road in a tough environment on a top 25, against a top 25 team, and it came back and it bit you. I mean, Fleck running onto the field after Tyler Johnson gets hit, it's uncalled for. I know you want to have your guys back, but you can do it in a different way. You costed the Minnesota Golden Gophers a prime chance to get back in that game and maybe tie it up. I mean, when he comes on that field, it's completely negated with an unsportsmanlike call, and it's completely negated. Now, honestly, when they went to Mike Pereira and they asked him what should have happened was the Gophers should have gotten a first down and then were maybe marked on 15 yards penalties after that, because the way that it works is how it happens, right? So first the hit on Tyler Johnson occurred, and then PJ Fleck came out. So what it should have been was first down, automatic first down off the personal foul, late hit, but then it should have been tacked on to that first down. So instead, you would have started at the 22 first down instead of a turnover on downs. Iowa gets the ball. Also, you know, the illegal touching on the punt in the fourth quarter, it's a 15-yard penalty. You basically completely switched the field. You had 5 drops in this game. You're all-pro wide receiver. You're quote-unquote 2 NFL guys, and Bateman and Johnson dropped a lot of balls. Yesterday, they had a bunch of missed kicks. I mean, we can't have a kicker that can kick an extra point, and it ended up really biting them because at the end of the game, when you're down 4 instead of 3, you have to go for an onside kick. You can't miss extra points as a Big Ten program. If you want to sit and tell me that this is going to be the next great coming with PJ Fleck, you've got to have a kicker that can kick it through the uprights. I'm sorry. It's a Division III kind of move. It's a high school thing not to have a kicker that can at least kick an extra point. And this is a kid that had to bank it off the goalpost from 27 yards. Bad uses of timeouts from PJ Fleck. This was probably his worst coached game, and he saved it for basically the worst time. He could have gotten away with having some bad moments against the crummier teams, but in the biggest stages, you're exposed. And when you are making these decisions, you're under a microscope, especially when you're a top 10 team now in the country and you're on the road. Here's the bottom line. The Gophers are a middle-class/economy football program. And for the past 9 games, they've been flying private this year. They have been sitting in first class. And a lot of times, you look at the eye test, why, Gophers? Wait, number 8 in the country? Okay, and then you kind of look at the eye test, and you're like, really? They're 8? And then the cream kind of rises to the top, right? Minnesota shops at Abercrombie. Ohio State is shopping at Balenciaga. And that's the difference here. Say it out loud, folks. Minnesota Gophers college football playoff. It doesn't sound right. The Gophers don't belong in that conversation. And I know that. I know where my role is. You know what I'm saying? You know how people say stay in your lane, or, hey, this isn't you guys. This is for Ohio State. This is for Clemson. This is for Georgia. This is for Alabama. Gophers, you guys can push a New Year's Six bowl, but this isn't your kind of tea. This isn't your cup of tea. And it's not. And that's the reality of the situation. Do you remember when UMBC beat Virginia, the number 16 seed in the NCAA tournament? Remember that? How could you forget? They beat Virginia, the number 1 seed. They won the NCAA tournament in their eyes, UMBC. Because what happened the next day when they had to play Kansas State? They lost. Reality sets in. UMBC won their national championship against Virginia. Minnesota won their national championship last week against Penn State. Because what happened the next game? Just like how UMBC had that massive upset against Virginia, and no one thought it ever can happen, and no one thought the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who have played nobody, could beat the Penn State Nittany Lions. They did. And what happened the next game? Reality sets in. Minnesota has no business being discussed in the college football playoff. They're not there yet. I think they can maybe get there one day with PJ Fleck, but right now, come on. The Gophers were flying first class for 9 games. And eventually the flight attendant's going to walk down that aisle, and they're going to look at you and look at you twice and say, wait, you don't belong in first class. And that's how Iowa looked at Minnesota. Yeah, they saw the number 8 ranking, but when you actually play the team, you're like, wait. This isn't a top 10 team in the country. This isn't a team that's better than Oregon, Notre Dame, or Michigan. I'm not trying to rain on the Gophers parade because this has been one of the most unexpected Gopher season in years, and it has been one hell of a ride, and it's not over. So let me give you the good news about what has happened yesterday. You win out, you beat Nebraska, and you beat Wisconsin, you're going to the Rose Bowl. You're going to Pasadena. So there's a ton left to play for. Even though you lost your perfect season, even though you're 9-1 right now, you're 6-1 overall, you have plenty to play for. You have a chance to go to Pasadena and play a Pac-12 team, whether that be Oregon, whether that be Utah, in the Rose Bowl. Look how far the Gophers have come, okay? Opposing teams now are storming the field after beating the Gophers. Iowa's beaten the Gophers how many times in a row? But they stormed the field on Saturday night. That's telling. And this team has a lot left to play for. Because if they go and they can go beat Northwestern, who's won 2 games, who struggled against UMass on Saturday through 2 quarters, they ended up blowing them out. And if they can beat Wisconsin, who's going to be looking for revenge, you know that the Minnesota Gophers beat them last year, so they're ready to go. But if you can somehow beat Northwestern and Wisconsin and finish 11-1 going to the Big Ten Championship, we're back in first class. I mean, let's be honest. We're enjoying the ride right now. Come on. It's like we're Jack. It's like we're Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic. Okay? He won the Titanic trip by playing a thing of cards, and he got on the trip. He had no business being on there. But what does he say at the toast with Rose and all the bougie people around there? I'm just happy to be here. I don't belong here. He puts on the tuxedo. Yeah, he looks great because he's Leo, but he knows he doesn't belong there. Same thing with the Gophers. Gophers know sure as hell they don't belong in even the same sentence as Ohio State, as Clemson, as Alabama, as Georgia. We're just living the dream right now. And that's how you got to look at the season. 9-1, 6-1 overall. Yeah, it's been a cupcake schedule. Yeah, we've been flying first class. We got moved back to coach. But you know what? We still got a chance to go to Pasadena. And that's how I'm looking at this season. You got the 2-win Northwestern Wildcats, and you also had every opportunity in this game to win. There's a lot to look forward to with this Minnesota Golden Gopher team. But let's not get too spoiled. Let's not get too over our heads on where the Gophers could have been this year. We're just happy that we're here right now. Stay with us. Don't move. Ryan Ohalloran from the Denver Post will break down the matchups and what we need to look out for the Broncos-Viking game in just a bit. And we're joined here by Ryan Ohalloran, the beat writer for the Denver Broncos for the Denver Post. Steven Strom here from TalkNorth.com. Ryan, thank you so much for giving me some time today.
Sure, no problem.
Let's get into the quarterbacks here. Joe Flacco out, Drew Lock out. Brandon Allen in, third-year man out of Arkansas, led the Broncos to a win 2 weeks ago over the Browns, 12 of 20, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. What's been your early thoughts on him? I know he's only played one game, and what does he bring to the table? Maybe that's different than a guy like Joe Flacco.
Well, the early thought was he was functional. He had never played an NFL regular season snap, and he looked it early, was a little off target, but I think he got his game going by scrambling out of the pocket, creating some big plays. And the key thing is he didn't have any turnovers, which has been a problem for this offense this year. So I think he'll take another step forward against a tough Viking defense. As for Flacco, he's on IR, he's done for the year. As for Locke, he just started practicing this week. He missed nearly 3 months with a sprained thumb. Brandon Allen's keeping the seat warm, I think, for Drew Lock. If Brandon plays well and the Broncos win a couple games, he'll hang on to the spot. This team loses a couple, falls out of playoff contention officially, it makes a ton of sense to give Locke a look to see if he can be your guy moving forward.
And I like Drew Lock. I watched him a lot last year at Missouri. I think he's a very good quarterback, and we'll see how he does once he gets back. And like you said, if they lose, they're probably going to throw him in to the fire pretty quickly just to see what they've got here. You coming off the bye week here, kind of couple days, couple weeks to lick your wounds. What's the injury update on this Denver Bronco roster so far?
Well, again, he's missing a couple guys. Right tackle Juwan James with a knee. Vic Fangio said before practice, on Thursday, they're less than 50-50. Also less than 50-50 for tight end Jeff Hireman. He also has a knee injury. They both missed the last game, so they're probably going to wait a week on those two guys. Everybody else should be good to go. DeMarcus Walker's defensive end. He's ready to go. Will Parks probably be their nickel or their dime safety. He'll be ready to go playing with a cast on his broken hand. So, the biggest injury for this Bronco team was in week 4. Bradley Chubb, who's their best player. He's better than Von Miller at this stage. He tore his ACL. He was able to finish the game remarkably, but he's been on IR ever since. He's out for the year. So this defense has had to sort of regroup after losing Chubb.
And we're here with Ryan Ohalloran from the Denver Press. Yeah, I was just kind of looking at your schedule. You lose by 2 against the Bears. You lose by 2 against the Colts. You lose by 2 against the Jags. I mean, Ryan, this 3-6 record could easily be 6-3 right now. What has happened late in these games for the lack of just being able to finish these games?
Well, the common thread is defense had a chance to shut the door, didn't do it. Week 2, Chicago converts a 4th and long, kicks a field goal. Against the Jaguars, Jacksonville moves right down the field, kicks a field goal. Indianapolis, 35-yard pass after a missed sack. They move in position, so plus a 15-yard penalty. So, if you're the Broncos, you want to at least maybe hang your hat on, okay, the Browns tried to make a comeback 2 weeks ago, but you're able to make a stop on 4th down. You're able to run out the clock with a first down. So, if you're maybe grasping at a straw a little bit, but they felt like they maybe have turned a little bit of a corner in terms of finishing out the game like they did 2 weeks ago.
Vic Fangio, new head coach for the Denver Broncos. Viking fans very, very familiar with him as he ran the Chicago defense and made Kirk Cousins' life very, very hard with guys like Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks. What's your early thoughts on Vic Fangio so far? We're through 9 games here. Give me kind of your rundown on Vic Fangio and how he's done so far.
Well, I mean, he came into a situation where they knew it was going to be a build, although they never want to admit that here with John Elway, the GM. I think early on it was a struggle. They started 0-4. They maybe waited a week or two too long to make some personnel changes on defense. And in these end-of-game situations, Vic doubles as the play caller like Mike Zimmer does in Minnesota. So, you have to look at him and say, okay, what were some of the calls? Why weren't there more pressures, et cetera?